senior exec called Jeff, and Jeff always used to use the term executional excellence. Don't you just love those terms? It's like we killed something, but we did it really well. And I got the feeling that no one was really understanding what Jeff meant when he said executional excellence. So I raised it with him. And I said, could you explain to me what that means? And he said, well, it's the combination of the visualisation followed by the realisation of our agreed deliverables in line with our strategic direction. Not really still getting that, Jeff. Can you just tell me again? And he went, well, it could be stated as the completed objectives that are both in a consistent and reliable manner. I thought I'd push my luck just one more time. And out of pure frustration, Jeff said to me, put simply, executional excellence is when we decide to do something, let's make sure we bloody well do it right. Why can't we say that? Why don't we say that? I mean, I get it takes more words than executional excellence, but when did we start taking leadership lessons from Twitter guidelines? Some of the stuff we use doesn't even use less characters. There's one going around at the moment, close of play. Any of you notice close of play? I need that by the close of play. That would be the end of the day. Yep, you got it, by the close of play. So you've just asked me to bust a gut to get you something by the end of the day, but somehow we're making it sound like a play date. You know, there was, in the 1960s, John F. Kennedy said, we will put a man on the moon and we will bring him safely back to Earth by the end of this decade. Now, if Kennedy had been a modern-day CEO or politician, he'd say something a little bit different. And it'd be something along the lines of, our mission is to be the preeminent leaders in the industry by combining best practice in a scalable and robust reach-out mission that we will do by the decade's close of play. Folklore has it on one of Kennedy's visits to NASA, he asked a cleaner what he was doing. And the cleaner said, I'm helping put a man on the moon. Imagine if we could talk in a way that the cleaners knew what we were doing. Imagine if we could talk in a way that we got engagement and connection at every level of the organisation. And I use the word imagine because I don't think we are doing that. I don't think we're being real with the way we communicate. In fact, I think we're being unreal, and I don't mean that in a cool way. This way we talk, in an unreal way, it's killing us. It's killing engagement, it's killing productivity, it's killing loyalty. I entered the workforce smack bang in the middle of the 80s, and I don't know if it's nostalgia, but the 80s were good times, weren't they? I mean, we were walking like an Egyptian, we were living on a prayer, and we built this city. We built it on rock and roll. And I don't know about you, but I was having the time of my life. Well, that was 4, if you were counting. But then something really bad happened, really bad. And I know what you're thinking. You could be thinking Milli Vanilli, that was pretty bad. Some of you might even be thinking when Rick Astley released Never Gonna Give You Up. Now, granted, they were both pretty bad, but what happened was the recession hit. We either lost our jobs or we did everything to not lose our jobs. We enrolled en masse in MBAs to make us more employable, where we learn about TOES analysis and SWOT analysis and Porter's 5 forces and all this other way to analyse stuff. And at the same time, the internet came about, so we had all this information at our hands. The mantra of if it can't be measured, it can't be managed was heralded around corporate Australia. So we produced even more data and more information. And then we had this problem of how were we going to communicate all this valuable information? How are we going to cascade it down the organisation in a way that was engaging? Well, thank goodness Microsoft released PowerPoint. Yes, we all have a little bit of a laugh now, but don't forget how excited we were when PowerPoint came out. PowerPoint replaced the overhead transparency. With PowerPoint, we had sound effects. We could decide which way the slides transitioned, from the left, from the right. My favourite was the dissolve from the middle. Remember that? And we had those little clip art characters. You know, we could have the ones that were pointing at things, or the ones that were shrugging. What about the one that scratched its head? That was... And then we could have thought bubbles over the top of them. This is one step away from Pixar animated Finding Nemo stuff. Of course, what we do know is that PowerPoint condemned us to some sort of presentation hell of bullet point infinity. Now, I should just say here, when I'm talking about PowerPoint, I'm not talking about the brilliant use of PowerPoint you're going to see today from my fellow speakers. The green room gets a bit ugly after I talk. I'm talking about the systemic poor use of PowerPoint that has been going on ever since PowerPoint was introduced. I mean, if PowerPoint was a prescribed drug and they found out that when you took it, it severely impacted your ability to communicate, it would have been withdrawn a decade ago. But yet here we are, still addicted. Did we make some weird Rick Astley type promise to PowerPoint of never going to give you up, never going to let you down, never going to run around or desert you? There is no denying that PowerPoint and the access to information has not only changed how we communicate, but what we communicate. And where we've ended up is a place where we are just informing people. We are continually bombarding people with information and informing them. And it needs to change. Death by PowerPoint has to stop. Corporate jargon has to stop. Leading and talking in this depersonalising way has to stop. Do you know by 2020, Gen Y will be the most dominant generation in the workforce? I love Gen Y. Is there any Gen Ys in the room? Yay, yay. Say it loud, say it proud. Stop lying. What I love about Gen Ys is they have this beautiful, healthy disrespect for authority. Yeah, all the Gen Ys going, yeah, yes we do. They will not follow anyone on a position or title. They will follow the leaders and the organisations that connect with them, that engage them with purpose and that inspire and ignite them. There's also information overload is not new, but it's not going away. We've talked about it. People aren't looking for leaders to provide more information. They're looking for leaders to make it relevant for them, to make it meaningful for them. So I visualise this spectrum, and I call it my get real spectrum. And on one end, we have people that just inform. They're just passing on information. And at the other end, we have people that inspire. And we need to move along this spectrum. We keep asking our people to do more with less, but how do we expect to do that if we don't inspire them? Attraction and retention of talent is still a challenge, but how do we expect to retain talent, let alone attract them, if we don't inspire them? Companies spend a fortune on graduate programs only to see them leave a couple of years later. And it's really easy to say that they're not prepared to do the hard yards. They are not leaving to go sit on a banana lounge by the pool. They are leaving to work for leaders and organisations that inspire them. So we need to move. We need to move along this spectrum to a place that's more inspiring, especially if we want the cultures that we drive for and strive for. But how do you do that? One of the ways you can do that is simply in the way you talk, the way you communicate. Last year I was driving in the car and my two daughters, Alex and Jess, were in the back seat. And Jessie was 10 at the time. And I overhear Jessie saying to Alex, "Hey Alex, do you know when lovers communicate, they go, ugh." Did I just hear what I thought I heard? So, what was that, Jess? Trying to play all real cool. What was that? She goes, "I was just telling Alex that when lovers communicate, they go, ugh." Now, I am pretty sure they have not overheard anything, right? And if they have, it's certainly not, ugh. Well, it's not from me, anyway. So I'm freaking out a bit, and I go, "So, who told you that? Who told you that?" And she went, "I saw it on the internet." Okay, so now I'm really freaking out. And I turn around, I go, "Jessie, I don't know why you are watching Lovers on the internet, but it's completely inappropriate," and blah, blah, blah. And she just looked at me and she said, "Mum, I never said lovers, I said llamas." Whew. Carry on. Carry on. How do lovers? No, nothing. Go, carry on. Carry on. See, the way we communicate is critical, right? And I think a lot of the times we are saying llama and they're hearing lover and it's freaking them out. Because there's a lot of Jeffs in the world that talk about executional excellence. We talk about optimization or visualization or operationalization. What about cut the crapization and say it as it is ization? Why do we feel compelled to add ization to every 10th word we say? Because every time we use jargon, every single time we use it, we disconnect and we isolate people. Every time. Because using jargon is easy. Being genuine, being real is hard. Now, don't get me wrong, with all the very best intentions, I'm guilty as the next person is using jargon, but every time I do it, I know I'm being lazy. Because jargon is being lazy, and if it's not lazy enough, we then reduce it to an acronym. Do you know there's a word called acronymization? I kid you not, it means the process of turning a phrase into an acronym. The world has gone mad, seriously. One of my favourites at the moment, and I use the word favourite loosely, is customer value proposition or employee value proposition. How many of you use it? You use it, don't you? Yeah. Yeah, the hands didn't go up as proud as the Gen Y question before. It was... So we have customer value proposition or employee value proposition that we reduce to CVP or EVP. Does anyone really... It took me years to understand what that meant, you know? And I sort of get it that the customer value propositions are stuff we do for our customers and the EVPs are stuff we do for employees, but does anyone really get it? We ask our people what's our CVP and they're just thinking WTF or NFI. The one cool thing about acronyms, you can drop the F-bomb on stage twice, like I just did, and get away with it. I think if we could replace our jargon with stories, I'm a massive fan of storytelling, and I think if we can replace jargon, a language we use that disconnects, with stories that connect, we would have a better culture and we would have a better working environment. Earlier this year, we went on an overseas holiday, first European holiday with the kids. And one of the places we went to was Paris. Now, my daughter Alex, she's the oldest one, not the llama-loving kid. Alex was diagnosed with celiac disease 8 years ago, so she hasn't been able to eat any gluten. And on the eve of going to Paris, she said, "Mum, I know this is a really dumb idea, but I really want to have a croissant in Paris." So the next day I'd organised a food walking tour, and I spoke to the tour guide about this, and she said, good news, the French process flour differently, and it's really, really low in gluten. And considering croissants are mainly butter, who knew? Croissants are almost gluten-free. So we had one happy kid on our hands. And she also said, if Alex hasn't had a croissant for 8 years, it deserves to be the best. Are you prepared to go out of your way and I will take you to the bakery that is known to have the best croissants in Paris? And of course we did. So there we were, walking along, passing bakery after bakery after bakery that all served croissants, that all looked the same to me. And the guide said, the French have a saying, "Ce vaut le déplacement." And what it means is it worth the trip? They talk about, would you go out of your way for something? Like we were going out of our way for the best croissants in Paris. And by the way, they were "Ce vaut le déplacement." It took me 6 months to learn that phrase in French, and I am so going to use it more than once. So it got me thinking, imagine if you could share a story like that and then say, what are we doing that customers would go out of their way to work for us? What are we doing that people would go out of their way to buy from us? What are we doing that's worth the trip? Imagine making decisions, sharing that story and then making decisions. Is this worth the trip or not worth the trip? Because I don't know about you, but that engages me in a way that what's our CVP never would or never could. Because a story will trump jargon every single time, every single time. So leadership's a tough gig, right? And the way we move across this spectrum, it's more than just what we say and how we talk, it's who we are. Another way we can move to a place that's more inspiring is being prepared to bring our whole selves to our leadership. I mean, what do you care about? What are you passionate about? What are you going to take a stand for? And are you prepared to bring that to your leadership? I see too many leaders that feel they need to be bulletproof because they have a position of authority. Leaders who believe they need to have all the answers and not show any emotion or vulnerability. That's not inspiring. It's not real and it's not inspiring. People are looking for leaders who are prepared to show emotion and vulnerability, not leaders who are perfect. Because perfect leaders aren't real and real leaders aren't perfect. So when you're not prepared to show emotion and vulnerability, you end up making decisions and acting in a way that is safe or that is popular. It was Martin Luther King who said, cowardice asked the question, is it safe? Expediency asked the question, is it politic? Vanity asked the question, is it popular? But conscience asked the question, is it right? And when I see leaders who are prepared to bring their whole self to their leadership, to be real, I generally see leaders answering the question, is it right? Too many leaders act and make decisions in a way that is safe, politic or popular, not on what is right. So being real leadership, moving across to a place that's inspiring takes courage. But I believe it will be worth the trip. And I think the time is now. We have a generation screaming out for us to be real. The time is now to move from a place where we're using jargon to a place where we're being genuine. From a place where we're just cascading information to a place where we're connecting. From a place where we're asking, is it safe? To a place where we're asking, is it right? We all have it in us to move along this spectrum to be a more inspiring place. You all do. To be you, to communicate in a way that truly connects, and to constantly ask yourself, is your leadership worth the trip? I llama you.